let's start.
Okay.
Well, welcome to another edition of Still the Show, which is Petanque 365's podcast. And this evening, I'm joined by Tony and Simon because we're going to talk about the Transplant Games. This came to my attention a few weeks ago. I was always aware of it, and I think Petanque England, when I was on the board, also supported that. But I came across Tony and Simon. I'm also aware, obviously, about Scott and Dean Ashley, who are also competing in the Transplant Games this year. I just thought it'd be a great idea to catch up with the guys, just to talk a bit about their sort of personal journey through their transplant and what they've been through there, and the association with Petanque. And obviously, let's talk about the games themselves, because there's two. There's the games, obviously, in England, the national ones that are taking place, and then there's also the World Games, which are taking place later this year. So, Tony and Simon, welcome along, and really glad you could join us this evening. Do you want to talk a bit about your sort of own sort of personal circumstances here with the transplant side of things?
I'll start, Simon, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
My mother died in 1986 of a brain aneurysm at the age of 54.
Oh,
and
dear.
so they did a post-mortem, and she had polycystic kidneys, they found, which caused high blood pressure. So obviously my sister and myself had to have a check to see if we had them. My sister didn't, but when I went for the check, the nurse was looking at the screen and she just went out the room, and then about 50 people came into the room to have a look at these cysts.
Okay.
So before they said anything, I knew that I had it. But that was in 1986. I started playing pétanque in 2001 and still play now. Obviously worked as a teacher. Kidneys obviously were deteriorating, and had to go on the transplant list in, let me think about it, 2012, I think, 2012. Strangely enough, I have my wife's kidney.
Oh, right, okay.
So my wife
was
an incredible lady who actually donated her kidney to me, which I am eternally, obviously, thankful for. And so she's a donor. I had it done in St. George's in London, because I lived in Seaford at the time, moved back to Nottingham, carried on playing pétanque, met up with Simon, started playing together, and we won the British Transplant Games Pétanque Championship. So that's
fantastic, Tony. I mean, I hear a lot, and I can see this on the website, which features the Transplant Games. It's really quite common, isn't it, for family members to be a donor? That's quite.
But to have your wife who's not a blood,
is unusual.
It's quite unusual.
Very unusual.
Sorry, I didn't immediately pick that up. Of course, I mean that's obviously
really unusual. Usually, like with Dean and his brother
Scott,
that was that's a blood relationship, and it's obviously so to have my wife as a match is quite incredible, really.
What's the chances of that usually, Tony? Is it really small, is it? Or
I would have thought so. I don't know anybody else who. There must be. I'm not saying I'm the only one. There must be other people.
There is a percentage. I mean, we've got I think 4 in our team that have got it. But again, it's very, very unusual. It's normally on the second transplant. It wouldn't normally be on the first, because on the first we need to get it in quick, and then afterwards you've got a bit more time to play with, because you know you're in a better position deterioration wise, and you understand more about kidney failure. Whereas obviously how that happened was remarkably, I would say, fate. Fate is a definite one to go with.
Yeah, that's right. And what about you, Simon? Sorry, Tony. Just move on to Simon.
I didn't go on dialysis. My kidney function just went down and down, and when it got to 10, that was the point when it had to happen. I was very, very fortunate. I had the transplant in December 2019, which is 2 months before COVID.
Wow.
So if I hadn't have had it then, God knows what would have happened.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was fortunate in so many ways. I can't believe it, really.
Yeah, amazing story.
Fate again, mate. Fate again, for sure.
And what about you, Simon? What's your story on this one?
Mine goes back to when I was 33, so that's nearly 17 years ago. I was fit, healthy, doing sport continuously, playing football, and had a lot of work-related stress, and found out that I had a headache. Made my way up to my parents, and basically crashed on their bed. Called the paramedics, took my blood pressure, 230 over 180, and it had wiped out my kidneys, got rushed in. So I crashed into kidney failure and was put on dialysis. Instantly told I've got to have a tube in my stomach, dialyzed 7 days a week, 4 times a day.
Wow.
And I didn't take very well to it. I was a very mardy, stubborn. I won't use expletives, but it was well deserved. I thought I knew best. Didn't do as I was told at all by the nurses or anybody, and was a bit of a cause of my own downfall, to be fair. Drank a lot, dialyzed a lot, went out with the boys and didn't care. And unfortunately went up to 17.5 stone, 6.5 stone of fluid retention, which then puts a lot more stress on everything else in your body. Long story condensed as much as I can do. In 2013, I had a stroke, which saved my life, because if I hadn't had the stroke, I'd have been dead within 2 months, because they found a hole in my mitral valve and a growth on my heart as big as a Brussels.
Wow.
Which was going to basically come away, block my artery, and kill me within 2 months. So again, big believer in fate. Went in was told that we need to pump you full of antibiotics for the next 6 weeks, but you might die any second, so make sure you wake up every day. So had insomnia from that point on, slept an hour a day for 6 weeks, had the operation. It should have been 8 hours, 18 hours later. Unbeknown to me, I died twice on the table. The wife was aware, I wasn't. Was kept in a heat wrap for 24 hours and told that might not wake up. So got past that point, back over to Derby, to be told that I had a hole in my arm. Sorry, hole in my finger, and my arm was fully crustated with like Hellboy, and I had sepsis, so I was going to lose my hand in 5 days. Thankfully, the hand clinic saved that. Got rid of the sepsis slowly but surely, and then after another 8 weeks still in hospital, got told you've got an abnormal heartbeat, we need to reset your heart. They put me under, had a bit too much general, died twice again, brought me back. After 7 months in hospital, it was great. Got let home, and then 2 weeks later got rushed in with hypertension. My heart rate was at 222. Wife was told I got half an hour to live. Again, the registrar there, great guy, that Adam, saved my life. And it was time to relax and have a reality check with my life. Still on dialysis at this point, but I was on hemo. So that's with basically a big lump in my arm. Needles go in there, and they dilate, do the blood.
Okay.
And then I got me head into the right place, found out about transplant sport, completely changed my mindset, and said, right, I'm going to get fit, going to get healthy, going to understand my body, get ready for a transplant. And fortunately, January the 22nd, I got the call, and I was able to make a promise that I was going to be at the British Transplant Games that year in 6 months and 6 days, because that's the only way you can compete. And I was going to go to Argentina the following month to compete in the World Transplant Games and get a gold medal to give to my donor family. That was my goal. So had the transplant, went well, went to the British Games, did okay, went to the World Games, I got 2 gold medals, and then met my donor family the following year.
And what were you competing at that point, Simon?
At that point, strangely, you might be interested in this, tejo was one of the sports.
What's that? I have no idea what that is.
This is what will intrigue you. So tejo is an Argentinian sport with discs instead of balls.
Ah, right, okay.
On a piste,
which nobody else plays, apparently.
Nobody else, apparently. But this is it. Argentina play it. So people went over to have a go using the same piste, but you had to use a disc. So at the end of the day, it's hand-eye coordination. It is what it is. And me and my partner who'd been put together, we won gold medal. So it was, well, okay. Well, then I did 10-pin bowling, did the 100-meter sprint. What else did I do? Cricket ball throw. And yeah, it was, I got a gold medal in the bowling as well. So it was interesting. Very interesting.
Fantastic. So you obviously, Tony, were involved in pétanque for quite some time previously, whereas Simon, you sort of came to it a bit later. How did you sort of arrive at pétanque, both of you? How did you get involved?
Mine was strange because I know. I used to know. I go camping every year in February. Would you believe? For a weekend, and one of the guys running it, I know very well, lives in Derbyshire, and he phoned me up and said, "We're one short for the pétanque team tomorrow night. Can you come?" So I went up there. I said, "Yeah, I'll join you." This was in 2002. It was in the Derbyshire Dales League. And from that moment on, I took my son up, who was 15 at the time, and we've played every week since, basically. So
great.
From that meeting, from that telephone call, you know, I'll give them a plug. It was the minor standard in Winster.
Winster. Wow.
Minor standard in Winster.
Yes.
Who I played for. And
With
I
a
played
wind
for
chill.
them for 12 years. And then we moved down south. And when I came back up here, I joined Ravenshead straight away.
Yeah. And you, Simon, how did you get involved in pétanque?
Mine was post-COVID.
Right. Okay.
I taught bocce in schools. So principles are very similar, and it was the only way to get out and about and do sport safely at that point. So I learned a trade with Eastwood up at Chesterfield. Give them a plug because they were great. And from then stepped back again. But when we found out that pétanque was going to be in the British Games, I had to reinvest and get my own balls and start playing and get some better balls. So
fantastic.
That was it.
And it's only just been, was it last year, wasn't it, 2024, that it came into the British Games? Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, and that was in Nottingham, because I remember we had some people from Petanque England up assisting, I think, or people from the club actually helping with that. Yeah. So how many played in that, and how did that go?
I think there's 36 in the end, and Nottingham City. Can't thank them enough. Absolutely brilliant.
I was about to reiterate that, Simon. The Nottingham club they were really worried about it, because I obviously play locally and I know a lot of the guys at Nottingham, and they were really worried about organising such a big, what they considered to be a big thing, with health and safety and everything else. But when it came to it, they did an absolutely fantastic job. There was no problem at all. They knew exactly what needed to be done, when it needed to be done, timings, everything. There was no problem at all.
Brilliant. And this was played as, sorry, this was played as doubles, is that right? Or
yeah, this was doubles.
Yeah. So you don't play triples at all?
Oh, you can, yeah. But with triples, you only have 2 balls instead of 3.
I know that. I'm just saying.
The problem is time.
Yeah.
Problem is time.
Yeah.
So we only have. It's like with a lot of our sports, we only have a certain amount of time, and it is completely open. So 36 people within that time slot would not allow much variation. That was the problem.
Yeah, you'd have to have another extra day for singles, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's never going to happen.
No.
Yeah. That's the problem. Is it's like with temping bowling. Normally at the British, normally at the British we would have 3. You'd have 3. You always bowl 3 games, but at the British we can only bowl 2 because we haven't got enough time for 180 people to play.
Yeah.
So that's why it was great. Just enough time, get 5 games in is perfect, and a semi and a final that we obviously had a bit of a hand in.
Simon, do you think there'll be more people playing pétanque this year at the British Games?
I think so, because it's a great introduction sport, and the only thing is, because the sports are staggered over so many days, on the Sunday you've either got a choice of athletics, tennis, or pétanque. So looking at lower level effort and stress, this is why it's one of the best sport. Every day has a low level sport, so anybody can do sport each day to make sure that it's completely inclusive. So that's why it allows for a lot more people to take part, of any ability and any age and any disability as well.
So if they come up against Dean and Scott Ashby, they're going to be in a bit of trouble.
Well, I mean, these are England internationals.
I'm not sure. The thing is,
in a bit of trouble when we see them.
The thing is, in the British, slightly different, because you can't partner with a donor.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
So he's gonna have to work out who he's with.
Okay, brilliant. And in terms of like Nottingham last year, in terms of the teams that come, do they come from all over the country, or is it how does it work? Do they come because they're linked to certain, you know, where they've received
I got
treatment,
the
or?
impression they came from all over the country, Simon, didn't they? I saw people from Newcastle and people from Exeter and all over.
Yeah, so there's in total 36 hospital teams. That
Oh, right, okay.
includes 11 children's teams, and anybody that has had a transplant can then associate with one of those hospitals, be it Tony is a transplant recipient down south, but his aftercare is at Nottingham.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a transplant at Nottingham, but my aftercare is at Derby. So he would have the choice of either or. But because we've actually got a hospital that has got a team as transplant, we'd be the better one to use for Tony in that scenario. Because if you have, for instance, children can have their transplant in a hospital in Gosh, for instance, because there isn't as many children's hospitals around, but then they can do their follow-ups at say Newcastle when they're older, for instance, and take part, and they can take a pick of which one they'll normally go with the adult team in Newcastle, you see.
Okay, that's very interesting. So we're looking at Blenheim Palace then in August, I think, isn't it? What's the date? Is it August the 3rd? Is it,
August
Simon?
the 3rd, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the Sunday you mentioned where it'll be there. Now, I've been to Blenheim Palace quite a few times, guys. I actually go there, used to go there, well, pretty regularly every year for this Christmas and New Year light show they have down there, which is absolutely fantastic. And you can imagine, as me being a massive pétanque fan and player, walking around there at night, I was in front of that amazing sort of palace building. And right in front of it is some fantastic pitches, actually. And I'm just wondering whether that's going to be where they're going to be playing.
Well, that's where we had it for the Europeans.
Yeah.
We've already had it there for the Europeans, and that's exactly where they'll have it again.
Right.
That's why we know it works.
And it was right in front of the palace there. And yeah, because I looked at that and I thought, wow, that surface looks a bit tricky. Quite a few big stones and stuff in it. Do you remember it being like that, or?
I didn't play in that. I was doing other sports, but
right.
I saw it when we went down and had some meetings down there, and it needs a good raking. Let's put it that way.
Well, most pétanque players like me are quite obsessed by pitch surface, you know, and
don't get me started.
Yeah, we always like a bit of a rough one. I was playing last night, actually, a very smooth surface, and I must admit I don't like that too much. It's like playing marbles.
Don't come to Ravenshead then.
Every pitch is different. So you reckon, Simon, there's going to be quite a big turnout then this year, hopefully.
I would say it should be up to at least 50. I would have thought this year.
Yeah. How many people we got from Nottingham, Simon? I thought we had about 18, didn't we? Signed up.
Not for Petanque.
Yeah.
No, for Petanque.
No.
For Petanque, we in our team we actually had 12. We had 12. We had 6 pairs.
Yeah.
We had 6 pairs that took part because we said to people, if you're not doing anything on Sunday, come on, let's crack on, let's have a go.
I just wondered how many Damon's got for this year.
For
Petanque.
You won't know yet until the end of May when it's cut off.
But I just wondered what the expectations were.
I think realistically you'd be looking at another 10%, so you'd be looking at 50.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like it's going to be a good tournament. And I did see actually David Baxter, who's one of the sort of stalwarts of pétanque in this country, trying to recruit some volunteers. And I did see on our Facebook group, we've already had quite a few people indicating that they're going to do that. So they're obviously, I mean, presumably the volunteers help sort of perhaps giving a few tips and advice to people playing, because I imagine there's quite a few coming.
What happened this year, because a couple of people from Ravenshead, Guy and Steve Harrington, came along. They're big players, and they were walking around, the inexperienced people who had never played before, giving them advice and telling them what to do, etc., etc. And there were quite a few people from local clubs doing that. And I think Nottingham had sorted all that out beforehand. Yeah. So they did a really good job pre the meet, basically, to make sure there was enough advice going on.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping that there's going to be some quite a lot of spectators down, because it's usually very busy down there at Blenheim, from my experience, particularly in the summer. It's a place a lot of people make for, don't it, for a nice day out. And if there's an event like that going on, hopefully you'll see quite a lot of people there, and our volunteers, no doubt, helping everybody enjoy themselves. So we got that, and then there's Germany as well later on that month, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah.
In Dresden for the World Championships.
Dresden.
So you guys off to that as well?
We are.
Yeah.
Touch wood.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I've kind of got to squeeze in the heart operation next month, hopefully, before I can go.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, all the best with that, Simon. If that goes well for you. So in Dresden, what are we looking at there? Every country sends representatives to play pétanque for that as well?
That's massive. Petanque, I mean, the ones to look out for are Thailand, France, obviously. But Thailand is one of the main ones. Iran.
I'm just thinking of the world. I'm just thinking of the proper World Championships this year. There weren't anybody from Madagascar, was there, Simon?
To be fair, Madagascar they aren't represented in the World Transplant Games, so we're safe on that one. No,
that's good news.
There isn't anybody. But saying that, people can actually go to the World Games off their own back and represent as a World Transplant Games participant. But
I see.
It's very much Asian orientated, and there's a lot of competition with those. I watch them because I watch the transplant team do a lot of training, and they're very, very keen. Some good shooters. Let's put it that way.
I mean, I watched the World Champ. I was really surprised how good Madagascar are, and what a big sport it is.
Yeah, I mean, incredible natural talent. It reminds me a bit, I suppose, being a cricket fan. You know, back in the day, West Indies, and you know, poor countries that have fantastic athletes, actually, often who've learned their trade in very difficult circumstances. I mean, I've been in cricket grounds in Barbados, for example, where literally the run into the pitch is sort of halfway inside the village. Into the actual crease, and Madagascar. It's I've not been. I'd love to go, but I understand it's very much a street sport, and it's something where the Madagascans are fantastic at. Anyway, so what's the chances of us pulling off a medal in Dresden then?
Yes.
Well, I think whoever's with Dean Ashby.
Or Scott. Yeah.
Well, how that works is one will be in the donor side.
Yeah.
With another donor, and the other, and
are they both played singles, Simon?
But they're in a separate categories.
Yeah.
Separate age groups, separate categories.
Yeah.
So,
well, imagine there might be a couple of gold medals there then.
You would hope so. The thing is with the piece that I know we're playing on is a clay football pitch that they're going to put some type of gravel on.
Okay.
So it's going to be flat. It's going to be flat. There's no excuses for anything like down at Nutbrook. So you're all safe with that. It's not going to slide off.
Not going to end up in the stream at the bottom of the pitch.
No, you're fine. But it's going to be an interesting how much actual gravel goes down, because this is what we did this in 2019 for the Worlds up in Newcastle in the Sage car park. If you remember back in the day when we had Petanque England involved, we gravelled and put a piece of wood down and marked it off top and bottom. There was 2 tiers: top car park, bottom car park, and they were the pistes.
No, it's very. I mean, I'm getting quite excited about this, guys, because I was thinking the other day, shall I go to Dresden to see this World Championships? And
as long as you're videoing.
I think you're beginning to convince me that it's going to be a trip I want to take, actually, guys. I'd love to go. So I'm going to see if I can get that into my schedule. I have been to Dresden. I was on the way back from Prague. I was watching another sport in Prague, West Ham winning the Conference League, actually. I'm a West Ham fan.
Who?
But I actually didn't know that. So I only had a very brief stop in Dresden, and I think I'd quite like to come down for that, particularly as now I've met you guys, and also obviously I know Dean and Scott well, who quite an inspiration to me, actually, Dean and Scott, because you know they went through an extraordinarily tough times. I'm sure you did. You know, in the run up to the opera. I've heard that from this evening, and they used it as an amazing motivation, actually, to then qualify for international representation. I was very inspired by the determination that they had in their recovery, and then to actually go out and win that, because that competition was tough. So, you know, in fact, maybe let's just end on this, actually, just to ask you guys what involvement in the Transplant Games, both nationally and internationally, what it means to you, and you know how has it helped you yourselves?
I mean, I'll answer first because Simon's way more involved in transplant sport than I am. I'm just playing pétanque. But all I want to do is highlight, you know, with my wife being my donor, how important it is. And anybody can be a donor. You don't, you know, my wife lives perfectly well with one kidney, and she'll be happy to say that on here. But it's just a highlighting that there is that need there. I mean, Simon had to wait for his kidney. I didn't have to wait for mine because my wife was there. But there's a lot of people waiting a long time. And if I'd have had to wait, I would have been on dialysis for so long, which makes you weaker. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, this is my world. I work with patients and volunteer for student training. Because it's the only way people can see and understand more about what is needed in our world. You know, sometimes it's a really bad place to be. Dialysis isn't the best thing at times, and it's very frustrating. I was on dialysis 7 years in total, but the thought of being able to be fit, being able to be active, you know, the Transplant Games, it inspires people to go, do you know what? I am fit and healthy. I'm going to look after my body. It gives me the opportunity to allow my kidney to last as long as it can. Our kidneys won't last a lifetime. That's what people don't see. Forget Coronation Street and all the rubbish that's on telly. I'll just bypass that. My kidney had roughly a 7-year life expectancy because it went in at 50%.
Okay.
I'm 10 years in now, and I was told that my kidney will fail by in 12 years, and that was after 5 years. And I told the doctor, that's not happening. I'm going to look after my body. I'm going to do better. It's dropped down in its time down to 20%. I've got it back up to 40%, and I'm sustaining it because of how I eat. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I hardly go out. I stay fit and motivated. I'm positive. The biggest, I won't say problem, the biggest concern for me with a lot of patients is the mindset. We can have a mindset. It can be positive. It can be up and down. And we don't talk a lot about our illness. And that is one of the hardest things to do when we're doing as blokes, it's even worse, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But we don't let people into our world, because if we let people in, they're in our bad place. And it can be bad at times, but we don't let anybody in. And this is where, if there is people out there that have had a transplant that happen to be playing pétanque as well, or want to get involved in transplant sport of any kind, then I'm here. You know, you can share my details. I am an open book. Find me on Facebook. I want to support as many people get to wherever they are in the country to take part and understand that our family is what it is. Once you're in it for life. And that's sincere, because there's only one way out of the family.
Brilliant. Well, I've got to say, I've really enjoyed talking to both of you about this, and thanks so much for sharing your personal stories, and also how that links into sport and the importance of that. I'm a great believer in sport, of bringing people together. I mean, in COVID, for example, I saw what it did to people when they couldn't play. It was a massive setback. And like you say, it's a family, and people support each other in fantastic ways. And I can tell from the way you've been talking, that's exactly what goes on in the Transplant Games. And my hat goes off to you guys. All power to you. And as I say, I've made the promise now. I'm coming to Dresden, so I'll see you there. I'm not sure I'll make Blenheim, but I'll see if I can go as well. So thanks very much, guys. It was really great talking to you. I really do appreciate your time. Thanks very much.